Hi! This video was inspired by a comment made by Marco from the Multiverso Distópico channel. I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description below. He basically commented that it would be a good idea to create a flowchart for Abraham's method. For those of you that do not know about Abraham's method, it's basically a method to play any module, any pre-generated module, as a solo game master with emulated player characters. I'm going to put a link to the main video in the description below. I recommend that you watch that video first, otherwise some things may not make too much sense in this video. So as I started to work on this flowchart, I realized that that was actually overcomplicating things, because Abraham's method at its core is a very simple method. If you need more examples about Abraham's method, I am also going to put a link in the description to my campaign, to my solo campaign featuring From the Ashes. You can see pretty much the entire method there, how I apply different things, the AI emulators, etc. So in this video, I am going to show you how Abraham's method only consists of 2 steps. The first step is preparation, preparing for the adventure. And the next step is basically reactions and responses or choices. Let's talk about preparing for the adventure first. This is somewhat similar to preparing for a game with your players, but it's a bit less involved, because when you're preparing your game for your players, you are always thinking about many details concerning off-rails situations. Even, like I said, if you're running a pre-generated module, you have like a basic structure for that adventure, but sometimes you think, what if the player characters actually befriend that non-player character? Or what if they become enemies of that non-player character? What if they decide to take a different course of action? Maybe they avoid this site completely and they go to this opposite end of the adventure, or they are taking this other route. So you're always thinking about such things. But when it comes to running a session as a solo game master, you don't need to think that ahead, because you're going to be playing with emulated player characters. You're going to have a certain degree of control over their choices. So instead of 10 or 20 different possibilities that you need to think beforehand, you only have perhaps like 3 or 4 choices that the player characters will make, or predictable choices. So you only need to think about those choices. So preparing for the adventure, it's quite normal. You choose your system, you choose the module that you're going to be running. You think about the party of adventurers, you come up with their character classes, their backgrounds if you want. You could use other methods to generate a party of adventurers. I am going to talk about a play aid that I purchased a few weeks back. It's called, I forgot the name. I'm going to put the link in the description. I think it's the Motif Player Character Emulator. It's very interesting. I haven't used it yet. I am just like going through it. In my next solo session of From the Ashes, when I finish my solo tutorial featuring how to run a pre-generated module as player characters, I'm going to focus on that on my From the Ashes solo campaign using the Motif Player Character Emulator. In that Motif PDF, they give you a way in which you can create player characters for your game. You can also use this solitary GM document to create a party of adventurers. But in my case, I prefer to create the characters on my own without randomly determining different things for them. And so after preparing your party of adventurers, choosing your system, your module, you're going to head off into the adventure. And this is step 2. You're basically running things exactly as explained in the module. So if the module starts with something like, the characters are camping in the forest and they are heading towards this direction, or the player characters decide where to go, maybe it's somewhat of a sandbox experience. then you only need to determine the choices, the reactions, the responses of the player characters by using your preferred set of tools. In the case of Abraham's method, I use the Game Master's Apprentice deck to determine all of those responses and choices of the player characters. So it's all up to you. And like I said, you can use this motif player character emulator. It's actually, I think it's a good tool. Like I said, I still need to test it, but it's basically, it consists of having like a sequence of questions. Perhaps the question is a yes or no question. Perhaps the question has to do with the character being a bit impulsive. Perhaps it's tied to the nature of the character, but you're going to be handling this sequence of questions, and by making rolls, you're going to be determining the character's choices. This is very useful for example, maybe the characters enter a room and there is this device. Maybe the device applies some sort of positive effect upon the party, or maybe it's actually a trap or it curses the party. So you need to determine if the party of adventurers are going to interact with that object. When it comes to using the Game Master's Apprentice deck, you make your rolls as explained in Abraham's method, and then based on your interpretation, you decide what the party of adventurers is going to do with that object. Or perhaps you are rolling for a single member, or you're randomly determining who in the party is going to take action. And in the case of the motif emulator, by asking those questions, you see if a character is going to interact with that object. Like I said, maybe the character is quite impulsive, maybe the character attempts some other thing. So you need a set of tools to make those reactions, those responses, how the character is going to interact with the room, with the event, with the non-player character, with the situation. So it's all very simple. Once you start to run the pre-generated module, you forget about step 1, which is preparing for the module. And as the characters are, let's say, moving on the rails of the sequence of the events, when they get to this crossroads or juncture, when you get to switch rails or go off the rails completely, the characters, perhaps they are asked some sort of question by a non-player character. Maybe, yes, they arrive to a particular site. They have the choice to move to this site or to this other site. That's when you make your rolls to determine their actions. It's very simple. And of course, when it comes to combat, you're going to be using some other system like the amazing, excellent Flex AI guidebook. The link will also be in the description. And there are other systems that you can use as well. You can also use the Game Master's Apprentice deck to run combat if you want. Remember that the Solo Adventuring Toolkit contains a condensed or quick start version of the Flex AI guidebook system to run battles with an artificial intelligence sort of responses or reactions. So there are many ways to handle this. If you are playing a mass battles sort of role-playing game, you could use the Hostile AI deck. Yes, there are just so many ways. So, like I said, a very simple, very easy to understand method. But if my explanation was not clear enough, please ask away your questions, anything that requires clarification in the comments section below. And definitely take a look at my solo campaign featuring From the Ashes. That works completely on Abraham's method. All of the steps and processes and responses and reactions have examples in that campaign. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. If you are looking for examples on how to run a pre-generated module as player characters with an emulated Game Master, definitely take a look at my other campaign featuring the quick and classic role-playing game. So once again, thank you, and thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you and see you later.